Veterans, state CAVC employees, everybody watching at the Veteran Lang YouTube channel. Hey, how you doing? How's things? I'm your friendly VA credit Jerry Matthew Lang. We've got February is a short month. It's nearly gone, so we're about 2 months now down in the new year here in 2026. I guess my question there to you is, how you doing? How's those New Year's resolutions? Mine is it's moving. It's not moving as fast as I like it to. It's moving. It's interesting. Let me do a sidebar for you. It's interesting in life. We especially military, I think, especially in the service. For this example, anyways, we get trained to stay fit. We get trained to well, we get trained to be lean, green, mean fighting machines, I guess you can say. And then somewhere along the line, something goes sideways and we get away from that. Perhaps you end up with a disability or an injury that affects that. You start gaining some weight, and then you realize, oh, I gotta change that habit because it's affecting my health. Not always the easiest thing to do. It's definitely harder to lose it than it is to gain it. Boy, I tell you, I can gain it pretty quick. Losing it is definitely hard. So I've had the problem. Sometimes we fall off that bandwagon, as we call it. We fall out of discipline. We allow our disabilities to get the best of us sometimes. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. But I feel in my case, just to be more personal with you all out there today, that was kind of my issue. I got some service-connected issues too that have definitely slowed me down, caused me to gain a lot of weight. And boy, that's been my New Year's resolution this year, just like probably so many other people. Let's see if we can't get it down. So it's going. It's going. It's not quite where I want it to be, but it's going. So, but yeah, share your stories. Everybody share your stories. Let's get to know you as well. How are those resolutions going? I hear for some, we've got Lent here. Are the things you're giving up? What are you doing differently for that period of time? Feel free, throw it out there. Let's get to know each other as we educate in the process to make VA disability smoother between veterans and VA alike. All right, enough of that, right? You're like, man, are we going to get to this topic? I seen what it was before I clicked on the video. That's why I clicked on it. Yeah, all right, we'll get there. I'll admit, I was going to do this topic earlier when I first seen it coming before it got this interim rule about medications got implemented, and I held off intentionally. My concern was how hot the topic was, and I wanted to see how it went down. I had some thoughts. Well, I think now's a good time. We got to see the reaction to it. We got to see what happened. We get a chance to talk about it now. Overall bad? No. There's one good thing I like about the law and our legal system, and why I work within it is it's really designed to adapt and overcome in a lot of cases, and to have checks and balances in that process as it adapts. So picture this, if you will, and for a moment, before we get fully into the details of this medication rule that got rescinded by the VA. Law can't cover every scenario. It can't do it. It can only cover so much. You can only write so many words. We may not know that certain situations will arise in the future. Just can't cover it all. So what's great about that? Well, Constitution gets written. It can be amended. United States Code gets drafted. It can be amended as well. We find the Code of Federal Regulations comes along to help us interpret the United States Code as well, and it can be amended as well. And then when we go further down, we find the federal courts come into play to help us interpret the way the law is supposed to be, applied, or maybe even the intent of the law. And this is a great example of watching that happen. And this is just something that we need to understand when we're educating the VA disability process, because we are working within law. This is all law-based. Interpretations will change, whether it be an amendment to the United States Code, the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations, or whether it be through case law. And we watched a couple different things happen here to make an interpretation of the law. Now, when this happens, though, in support of the VA, I understand changes can happen fairly quickly. They can definitely, like this one, get put out there and rescinded within days. And that could cause some confusion, perhaps, in the process. But understand that we do have to do our best to keep up with these changes in rules and laws and regulations when we apply them to veterans' disability claims. So we have to be up to speed as much as we can, and that is definitely one thing that we do back here, be up to speed as much as we can. So I'll give you a break on that one, VA. This one probably shook up the floor a little bit, but let's get back on track and understand what this did here, and some of the outlook as you look at these disability claims from veterans and things that you might want to consider now in order to help the veteran out and do your part and interpret the rules and laws. Now, another great thing about the law is it's two-sided. As one attorney, I will present it one way, and as another attorney out there may disagree with me and present it another way. And ultimately, that's how we get where we are. We get that interpretation, ultimate final interpretation. So let's do this. Here's what happened in short. If you've probably seen it across social media, you've seen it in the news media outlets. I think there was even a lawsuit filed there for a moment. And I'm not tracking where that's at for this video. I'm not going to go in all that. I don't want to be in the politics of it all at this moment. I just want to show the interpretation of the lesson here as we apply it to moving forward. VA attempted to put out an interim final rule about the considerations of medications and the positive effects they may have on veterans' disabilities as it comes to functional impairment. What I take from the Federal Register is that the VA's intent was to say, well, functional impairment is what's being experienced at the time, even with the medications, and we're not going to look beyond that. I think that was really, wow, that created a public policy issue, as I'm going to call it. We definitely don't want, I don't want veterans to just not do any treatment or see the doctors for their conditions and try to feel better just to show how bad their condition truly is. So to be off that medication could be dangerous. To not get that treatment could be really detrimental. And I think we came to that understanding at some point with the outcry that we had from advocates and veterans and so many others. So VA did rescind this rule that said we're not going to consider the positive effects of the medication. We're just going to take the testing for what it's worth on the functional impairment level. So this has been rescinded, and it's not a rule anymore, VA. From what I understand is VA does not plan on, the higher powers to be anyways, plan on ever implementing this at all. But there could be another, who knows, another draft or attempt to clean up, well, the issue that we do have in the CFR, or change what the court's case law became. So to understand how we got where we were with this interim rule and understanding how the law applies, we got to look back at that idea that the law can't address everything again. It just can't do it. And interesting enough, we do find certain diagnostic codes when we talk about the evaluation assignments to various disabilities based upon their severities and symptoms and so forth. We do find some do talk about the medications, and it's like they take into consideration the effects, and some do not. Well, many do not. And this is what led us to the Ingram v. Collins case. And Ingram v. Collins had to decide, how are we going to handle that issue? What should be the interpretation? How do we handle the diagnostic codes and the conditions that don't have medications directly spoken about in the diagnostic code? So, in short, veteran Ingram here was service connected for back and left ankle disabilities. He took various medications to relieve the symptoms, especially pain. The rating criteria for the veteran's back and ankle in this case do not reference the effects of medication. In fact, they mainly just reference range of motion. The court ultimately found that the Board of Veterans' Appeals did not discount or consider the beneficial effects of the veteran's medications when evaluating the severities of his disabilities. We had two sides arguing here. I think we had great arguments on both sides, but I'm not going to get all that opinion there. I can definitely understand where both sides are coming from. Government side was trying to say, look, the courts have already said in multiple cases about flare-ups, about daily living and activities, functional impairment, addressing all those issues on what could be the worst case scenario. And it's those interpretations of those cases that already said we don't need to take it any further to the medication level, because we're already having examiners talk about and give us an idea of what the worst case looks like. Fair, I suppose. But Ingram's counsel was like, we don't agree. While all that may be in place, we don't feel that the medication is properly being considered by the VA. While those cases are in effect, it would seem that the ultimate intent, again, is the most severe situation for the veteran when it comes to those disabilities. How bad are those disabilities on their worst possible day? And in order to figure that out, we would have to have the examiner ultimately opine on the idea of how bad would their condition be if it was not for the positive relief that may be received from the medication that they are taking. Pain pills, for example. Have you ever looked at a box of pain pills? Ever looked at some cold medication? Even ever see how it says it's temporary relief? It's not fixing the problem. It's not causing the problem to go away. And I think ultimately that was what the court focused in on. Court had to focus in on the idea that medication only provides temporary relief in many cases, and therefore, while the exam may be showing that on all these flare-ups and range of motion testing, and especially the repetitive testing, a certain number, we can't discount the idea that that number may only be as good as it is because the medication is doing its job temporarily. And thus, how bad is the condition really? So the court ultimately laid down that interpretation that the medication should be considered. The positive effects of the medication should be considered and we need to relook at the full picture of the disability. If the medication is a positive effect, say it's limiting some pain or helping some of that range of motion be improved, then what would happen if it wasn't there? Because we don't want the veterans to stop taking it, but we need to understand from a medical perspective what that examiner feels and their opinion and ultimately the medical verse altogether here. What would that number truly be? Well, that's where we ended up with the rule that got proposed here and implemented for a moment, because VA decided that they didn't agree with the court there. The court's interpretation of the law, they don't agree with the idea that the examinations should all go back for interpretation of how bad the condition truly is, even with the positive effects of the medication. So that's what ultimately got us where we are. So VA, taking consideration Ingram v. Collins, you've probably been told that already, hopefully. I haven't taken the moment to see if that's been updated in your M21. It might have me. Might have. I usually stay in the law quite a bit, so I'm not always in the manual anymore because it's just guidance. And I do know that a lot of that guidance doesn't fit the law. I won't say a lot. There's definitely pieces that don't jive the law very well, in my professional opinion. So I do usually focus on the court cases when I argue stuff, the laws themselves. So I'll have to go back and check, and maybe I can follow up on that. But keep in mind that court case there. So when we're applying it to veterans' disabilities, VA, we have to consider that positive effect of medications. We got to get a better idea of what the functional loss really is without having the veteran risk their health by not taking the medication or getting the treatment in order to prove to you how bad it really is. But that's ultimately where we landed. That's where we landed. That's where we are at the filming of this video. That's really what I wanted to discuss with this video. I wanted to demonstrate how the law works, how it's supposed to work, and how it did work in this case, how the checks and balances played a role, how we get to these interpretations, how fast law can change, how fast things can be rescinded, how fast things can be amended, and why a lot of times things take a lot more time to amend in the process, how the courts can create case law outside of what's in the Code of Federal Regulations, outside of the United States Code as well. And these are things that are heavily, I think, misunderstood because we sometimes forget it's all there, and we're starting to try to understand, well, why didn't you do it that way? Well, did you see how fast that changed? Did you see how fast that changed? There's a lot of interpretation that got to be moved around really quick. Imagine what would happen if that interim rule stayed in place. Training would have to be done, not just for VA decision makers or VSRs, or I mean, even in our VSRs and DROs, but the medical staff. It would take some time to probably get there. But anyhow, there's that piece to it, and the idea of, look, this is another point of view of things that have to be considered as the whole picture when we try to get the worst case of how bad your conditions really are, veterans. Things that us advocates, VA accredited attorneys and agents and VSOs get to apply to your case back here in order to help you win your case. So there you go. I hope there's questions. There probably are along the way. I think we can just definitely learn a lot from this. Like I said, I wasn't going to get into the politics of it all or a lot of opinions to it all. That's not the point of this. It's the idea to see how, well, interpretations can be disagreed upon, and then how fast law can change. And where we stand right now on the rule. So when VA, you're looking at those claims, we know which case we've got to consider now. And it does cite to a lot of other cases too that we got to consider, yeah, there you go. What else we got going on? Well, we got plenty of other rule changes that may come down. That's been discussed. That's might happen, might not. I think that's still a little fuzzy. I'll probably get into those when they happen. A little bit more, you'll probably hear from others out there on different social media platforms about their opinions and takes on all that. So I'll leave that to them for now. We've got veterans are signing up to get help from us a lot more these days. We're doing everything we can to help them. I understand the process is very stressful, veterans. That's why we're here. Remember, my ultimate goal is to take that stress off you. I know you may still worry about your claim. I get it. But try not to. Remember, that's what we're here for. We're here to take care of that for you. Always work with I always feel you should work with the person you're most comfortable with when it comes to representation. You do have plenty of choices out there. And just like I've probably heard so many times on a Southwest airline, we know you have other choices, but we thank you for flying with us. Anyhow, if there's anything else you want to hear about or talk about before even the next video or down the road here, let me know. Throw in the comments. Always feel free to share your thoughts on this here and the application of this and what you see for the future of this. You never know. More could come out of this along the way. And with that, I will end my rants here, my rambling, my teachings, and I will tell you happy Tuesday. Happy, terrific, tremendous Tuesday. Boy, I haven't done that for a while. That feels good. You ever try that? Just holler it out. Tremendous, terrific, tremendous Tuesday. All right, I'll see you next week. And in the shorts, have a wonderful, wonderful, tremendous, terrific Tuesday.